Closet cleanouts are huge right now, and rightfully so. I still think it could be a good thing to clean out your closet, get rid of things that are maybe just not your style anymore or not for you that somebody could use. I view it more as a neutral thing because on the opposite side, I do think it can also lead to overconsumption, which it has done with me before. So I think the better thing for me personally to do for sustainability and also for my bank account is to revamp and flip pieces that I already have in my closet into new things. And a lot of times I'm wanting these new pieces that I find on like Pinterest or somewhere on the internet. And if I just flipped my own clothing, I could have that instead of buying it new. So that's what we're gonna do in this video. I have so many pieces that I could do this with, but I picked 4 for this video. If you like this idea and you like this video, please like and comment telling me you want more, because this is kind of new for us, I think. Anyway, let's get started. Okay, so first up is this dress I've owned for a while. I actually use it a lot in my styling videos, but I've noticed recently that I've only worn it 1 or 2 times, like out. And I think that's because of one thing, the waist. I don't tend to love an empire waist on me, and it also fits a bit weird at the back. So I think I'm gonna add some shirring just to basically make that waist longer. I hope that I have the option in the end to wear this without a belt because that's usually how I try to fix it. But honestly, it looks weird when it's under a belt as well. You will need elastic thread like I just showed, and I hand wind that onto my bobbin. If I were to try to fill this with my machine like I usually do, it would break the thread, and then you thread your machine with normal thread. So here I can use my original waistline as a guide for my new waistline, and I just started a 1/2 inch underneath that seam. Now here's a mistake I've made before, so I'll tell you it here. Keep the fabric stretched out as you go. One time I started to stitch over some folds that naturally get created as you stitch, and all that will do is cause this to stretch less, and you will not be able to get into the garment. So keep that fabric taut. Once you get all the way around and you're back at your first stitches, what I do is stop, turn the garment to where the needle is going down the garment. So a few stitches until you're about 1/2 inch down, and then you can start stitching your new row. Some people will stop and start and cut their thread row by row, but then in my opinion, that's just more work in the end to make knots because you have to knot your elastic at the end. And I find that really annoying, so I just make it one long set of stitching. I needed to keep going for about 3 inches down, and I made each row about 1/2 inch apart. Once I was at the end, I closed my last row instead of creating a new one, backstitched, and if you want to be extra secure, knot your elastic, and this project is done. This will be a small change compared to some of the other projects here, but I hope it will make a big difference. My next project was a shirt that I'd actually thrifted recently. I loved the embroidery work on it, but I was pretty sure I'd need to do some changing to it. But I wanted to see if I would just wear it as it is, and I never did. And that's because of one small thing, the collar. I really don't like fitted shirts with collars on me. I have a shorter neck, and there's nothing wrong with that, but personally on me, I don't like the shortening effect that a collar can give. So I want to somehow change the neckline and then cuff the sleeves permanently just to make it like a little bit more cutesy. So first I thought maybe a boat neck would work, so I tried to see a cut that would work well here. In order to mirror the marks I made on one side, I matched the shoulder seams and sleeves and pinned them together. Then I pushed the pins through at the markings to the other side. Flipped it over and marked where those pins were sticking out on that other side. When cutting, I gave myself a 1/2 inch seam allowance since you can cut away more, but you can't magically put back more fabric. Then I tried that on and didn't love it, but then I unbuttoned it and I really loved this new open neckline with this flat collar. It gives a very retro vibe, so I'm glad that worked out, and I'd actually been wanting a neckline like this for a while, so this was the perfect opportunity to try. In order to make this look nice and pretty, as well as add some nice detail, I'm gonna take this leftover bias tape that I have to finish my raw edges. If you've never used bias tape before, you're going to open it completely. There'll be a slightly shorter side and a slightly longer side. That might not make sense right now, but if you're looking at bias tape, you can see it. And I put the shorter side on the wrong side. You're typically going to want to put it on the right side, but the wrong side of the fabric is going to be shown here, so I started on the wrong side. Then I tucked that seam allowance inside the bias tape and pinned to the other side. Also, on each edge where you're going to need a nice finished look, give yourself a 1/2 inch of hangover with bias tape so you can tuck that in. Now, technically you're supposed to sew on the side where your first seam was stitched and dig in the ditch, but that annoys me so much, so I don't do it. I just go to the second side and hope for the best and try to keep my stitching as straight as possible. At this point, I was struggling with getting it to sit down in a natural looking way, so I decided to pin it down and tack all of it to the outside with hand stitching to get it to stay put. I hand stitched over the bias tape in the back so that wouldn't be sticking up anymore, and then prick stitched over the blouse in that collar area so it would stay down. Then there's this gap between 2 buttons on the front that was pulling, as most button downs do with me, so I added a hook and bar on the inside so that it would remain flush. If you ever put a safety pin between your buttons like I do so that they don't gape, this is a great permanent alternative. For the sleeves, I wanted it to look like I had cuffed it, but I wanted it to always stay in place, and I also wanted to add some of that visible bias tape just to pull that bias tape into the blouse a little bit more. So I turned the cuff under once and then added the bias tape to that turned over edge. After that was attached, I turned the cuff one more time and stitched for about 1/2 inch on the inside and outside of the cuff just to tack it in place. And with that, piece number 2 is done.
I searched the world, every mountain, every valley, for the one to whom I give my heart. So it seems that love is not discovered. Now I see that love discovers me. You came just like a flower in my darkest hour, bloom in the night, Cereus Bright. Darling bright in the moonlight, darling bright in the moonlight. You waited long for your knight in shining armor. Winter took its toll and your hope began to fade. But the heart is a tree of mystery and splendor, and love is the fruit that time must produce. Through the night we danced away, a dream will that's here to stay. Through the night we dance away, a dream will rise that's here to stay. Through the night we danced away, a dream will rise that's here to stay. Through the night we danced away, a dream will rise that's here to stay. You came just like a flower in my darkest hour, blue in the night, Cereus Bright.
Now, before we move on to the last project, I had big plans for this jumpsuit. I'd bought it a few years ago for a wedding, and then when the invitations finally came out, it was black tie, and this definitely wasn't fancy enough, but I decided to keep it, and I've struggled with styling it ever since. It's just not ever looked right on me, so I thought, why not turn it into a romper with shorts and widen the sides with that extra length left over. Now, spoiler alert, this did not work at all. This fabric is very finicky and starts to fall apart just when you look at it. In fact, I have never worn this jumpsuit other than to try it on inside my house a couple of times for styling, and already so many of the seams are falling apart. So not a great start, and also the lining was a lot more complicated than I originally thought, and that caused some issues too. So after cutting it to the length I wanted and cutting open the side seams to the arm's eye, I made triangular gore type things that I could add to the side seams to make the jumpsuit fit more loosely. At least I thought it would do that. They were very see-through, so I backed it with some leftover bed sheets and zigzag stitched those together. I then pinned this piece to each side and stitched. This ended up fitting so weird when I tried it on, so I had to stop here, and you will see what that looks like at the end. Spoiler, it doesn't look good, but I also think that as a person who makes things on the internet, sometimes it's important to show failures because it's a normal part of the process. Anyway, let's move on to the last project, which is this white long skirt. These have been in style for a while now, and I've gotten a couple of good years out of it as is, but I haven't been wanting to wear it recently because it just feels a bit bland. And I think I also want it to be shorter, and I'm very inspired by this recent like Edwardian / Victorian petticoat look that seems to be really popular. So I'm gonna start with adding some cotton eyelet lace. I bought this cute 2-inch one, and then this length of 6-inch lace. There's this cute little bow detail, which I absolutely love, and I'll be adding this to the bottom as a gathered addition. So with the skinnier lace, I pinned it over each seam between the tiers and stitched that down at the top and bottom. By the way, you might notice the lace is a bit lighter than the skirt, and that was because when I was buying these on Etsy, the white looked a little too white, but the ivory color looked a little bit too yellow. And in my mind, I thought a lighter lace would look better than a darker lace. It isn't a perfect match, but I actually ended up liking it. With the second tier around my knees, I also cut out the fabric at the back so the eyelets would show through a bit more. I didn't do that with the top tier because that's around like my underwear section, so I just did it with this one. And then apparently the gates of heaven opened up when I was filming this, so thanks for the overexposure, but I was just finishing those two edges that I just cut. Then with the 6-inch lace, I started by cutting that in half. Then I stitched the two lengths together to make one big circle. I used that stitch from my patchwork skirt that is both like an edge finishing and a straight stitch. I actually really like that stitch. It's really useful. And then I did 2 basting stitches at the top to gather this down to the skirt's width. Since I wanted this to be a bit shorter, I marked a few inches above the hem so that the lace would attach a bit higher up on the skirt. By this point, the skirt was still a little bit too long for me, so I got to do something I was hoping I get to do, which was add several rows of pin tucking. Now, would this have been easier if I had these tiers before putting them all together and like gathering them? Yes, but you know what? I didn't make the skirt from scratch. I bought it, so I had to do it this way, and honestly, it wasn't too difficult at the end of the day. I added 3 to the middle tier and 2 to the bottom tier. I couldn't add any to the top because that's where my pockets were, but with all of that, it's time to show you all of the final results. I know this may look like a small change, but the added waist definition makes all the difference to me. I love that if I want to, I can wear this without a belt, and the silhouette is so much better for my personal taste. But my favorite thing is that now this dress will lay correctly with a belt on top. I actually found some footage from another video that I hope you can see well, where the dress would kind of blouse over the belt, and the back just didn't look right. None of it looked right. I've actually always wanted to wear it with this particular belt, and now I can without it looking weird and blousy. These two are probably my favorite of this bunch, and they actually ended up looking really cute together. The top was always cute, but I love the open neckline that still retains the collar detail, and that bias tape to the sleeve just pulls everything together. The skirt now looks so detailed, and I just feel like I was able to seep life back into this skirt. And since making this video, I've already worn this a couple of times. Some people might have a problem with the two-tone, but I like it. I think it looks purposeful, and I think it adds some dimension. I also did not iron the pin tucks when I had to wash it because I had markings on it. Just don't judge them too harshly. And lastly, let's take a quick look at my failure. Yeah, there's something here with the hem looking kind of asymmetrical, but the fit is a fail. The main issue I had was the fabric itself. I'll think about what else I could use this fabric for, like maybe a purse. But until then, it's okay to fail sometimes. It's just going to happen because we're all human and this is all part of the process. And that's going to be it for me this week. My mom is going into surgery next week, and I'll be taking care of her during her recuperation period. So for the next month or so, once again, uploading will be a little bit wonky. I will be posting when I can in the meantime though. You guys were so understanding and lovely about it when I posted about it recently. Thank you guys so much for just getting it. Thank you. Be sure to subscribe and like and comment if you enjoyed this video and want to see more from me. That really helps me out, and I hope you had a good time, and I hope to see you back here next time. Bye.